Hello, and we're live with another episode of the State of Emergency podcast. We are back in the studio today again with another episode with my main man, Jorge. How are you, man?
Hey, pretty good. I'm right here, ready to go.
That sounds good, man. So, how did the Netflix go when you wanted to connect to this, man?
Well, just I don't know. I can have open all the stuff and try this old donkey refresh. Didn't work.
So, what's going on? How are you? How have you been this last week since we talked?
Pretty good. There's to make a couple of runs through state emergency police officers, so see how it works on the road.
Yeah, I know. We're well, as you know, we're well. It's good to have you, man. And as you know, we're in the middle of the state of emergency at the moment, and it's restricted to travel between different regions of the country. Uh, but dude, man, before we get into that, dude, you got to get your internet situation figured out, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it goes here. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. you have you got three greens over there or what?
What's that?
You got three green lights over there or what? Everything's humming
Yeah.
on your router.
Yes, I do.
Oh, I figured, with the state of emergency going on, it's a great time to really be creative, and have conversations about things, and I was thinking about who I was thinking about the
Oh,
yesterday.
who?
Well, remember that famous speech or infamous speech by Greta Thunberg?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you know how she said, excuse me, in that speech where she was talking about, she said, I should be in school.
Right.
Well, she hasn't gotten her wish still. I don't know how that's going on in Sweden, but if the kids are
What
not
school?
going able to back to school, she's still not in school.
I know.
So she should be in school, but she's not able to.
Yeah, she should take a sixth grade over anyway.
Well, what? How old is she?
I think they said she's like 18 now
So she
already.
made that speech when she was 16, or
Yeah. Or younger.
so she should be going to university or something like that.
Yes.
Unless she's been online schooling or.
Right.
Dude, so what is going on with your computer, man?
Well, the computer, it needs to go to recycle center,
Well,
I
I mean,
think.
you got to get you got to get your equipment updated, man.
I have to upgrade a little bit.
Yeah, dude. So
So,
anyway, have you been getting like keeping updated with any of the news lately, or?
really, not really. I just heard like Biden's supposed to do the speech, and he didn't take any questions or nothing. He just talked in the hall, and he said like that it's gonna be a U.S. gonna be free of coronavirus on July 4th. So we're keeping my fingers crossed.
Did you see the? I saw the headlines about it. He said I need all Americans to get vaccinated. Did you see that headline?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I
good
mean,
luck
I know
with
what.
that.
Well, I know why he says he needs everybody to get vaccinated
Yeah.
because he ordered a whole bunch of expensive vaccinations and nobody wants to get vaccinated.
Yeah, exactly.
So of course people need to get vaccinated. Otherwise, those vaccinations are gonna be like bust, you know?
right? They only last for a certain amount of time, especially the ones, the refrigerated ones. I mean, that's gonna go down to hell pretty soon.
How long do those how long I don't even know. How long do those refrigerated
Yeah,
vaccinations last?
I don't know really, but I think they say like 3 months or something, and then it's done.
Yeah, you know what I don't understand about it is if you get the vaccination, for example, are these vaccinations only for what they deem to be the classic COVID, or does it take into account the mutations?
Well, they were just saying about some of the, like the Pfizer supposed to catch some of the that British mutation, but
Hmm.
they say it's supposed to be good. But they don't know how many mutations and how, it's just going crazy. So they really don't know, I think, if it's gonna hold on to these mutations.
Yeah,
They
I
say
don't
everybody
know.
might to get revaccinated again with something else. So it's like 600 needles. You'd be like on Santa Monica Boulevard, dude. Give me another needle, my friend.
Well, that's part of the reason why some people are refusing to get vaccinated. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
and hey, speaking of vaccinations and how this COVID got started, did you see that? Did you see or did you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast with that Jamie Metzel?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he was talking about, well, in the middle of the conversation, they were talking about, because he's part of the, like this,
Yeah,
like,
VHO. Yeah,
yeah, the WHO, right? And
right.
he was like, talking about how the WHO didn't pursue searching for that it was a lab leak, that something was excuse me,
Right,
leaked from the lab, that it was from these bats. And
right.
I was thinking about it now, and I was like, well, if it was, that's, now we can't prove it, right? You can't prove whether it was uh, released from a lab on purpose or not. You can't prove that because the information is really dodgy, right? But if it was from a lab, that makes more sense to me, that it was released from a lab rather than from eating bats.
Yeah, I think so. Because that's what I said from very beginning, that it's probably a leak, because if the bats directly don't, this went strictly to humans. Usually these SARS disease, SARS virus, jumps on the bats or some kind of swine or whatever, these flus. It jumps on the animals first, and then it mutates and go onto humans. That's why they like wipe all the chickens, wipe all the swines, and now we have to wipe all the humans.
Well, that's an interesting point, because if it was from bats, right? And I don't know, have you seen any of the stories? If it was from bats, and this is my question about it, if it was from bats, if it was really from bats, wouldn't the Chinese government, or the Chinese government, I don't know, but wouldn't governments make a mandate to uh, exterminate the bats?
Right, exactly, something. But that didn't happen, see? The bats are not getting sick, only humans.
Not only are the bats not getting sick, but they're not even getting exterminated, right? I mean,
Right?
if I'm thinking that if the bat was a COVID carrier, right, and a bat is able to infect humans, wouldn't it make sense to get rid of as many bats as possible?
To wipe them out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because remember that one time when they were talking about crows having all these diseases, and they were
Yeah,
setting up
right.
in Southern California to kill all the extra crows to make sure that they don't spread so many diseases because they were overpopulated?
Yeah, the bird flu, right?
Right. And I haven't heard any stories, or I haven't seen any stories about long, large extermination of bats anywhere
No,
in.
exactly. They just close up the wet markets. Presumably, they said the wet markets closed up the wet markets, so they don't eat it, and that's it. So it's not connected to anything. They did some kind of they botched it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting that when they're talking about China, there's first of all a lot of the information that comes from a place like China isn't really reliable. You don't know whether or not it's true.
Right.
And second of all, what Jamie Metzel was saying is they sent in a WHO scientists in, but of course they're not going to show them the whole story of what's going on. They're just going to show them certain parts of the laboratory, parts of the facility. I don't know how much clearance those people get, and then they go out and then they make a press conference and say like, oh yeah, the laboratory is very clean.
Yeah, exactly. We can only guess right now. It's too late. It's a year later. I mean, you're kind of kidding me? Fucking kidding me? A year later, go somewhere in some country when you never been before. You don't even know what building it is. They bulldoze the old building.
Yeah, and then they build a new building. They build a new building and just show you the new building and the new facility, and then they say like, look here, this is what we do, this is how we operate, this is sterile, this is stainless steel, this is clean, we got the disinfection, we got the safety and all of these things. And I don't know if you know this, but what he was saying is that facility where they were testing for viruses, that facility, that scientific facility, they were docked for I don't remember what he said, but he said like for either 6 to 10 safety violations. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's all too long to get anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's too long to get any kind of reliable information from a place like that.
Right.
Especially if that country doesn't let in those investigators every month.
Right, exactly. That's what the WHO supposed to be taking care of, but they don't do that.
Right.
They didn't do it. And
because they were denied access.
Exactly. And now a year later, you don't even know where you're walking into. It's the same building. How do you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think after a year later to try to investigate something that happened a year before, I mean,
yeah, it's a long time ago, my friend.
Yeah, it's a needle in a haystack, basically. You're not going to find anything.
Yeah. Not even that. That's half needle in two haystacks.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna find it.
That I don't know what is the truth, but I think I don't like that term. I really don't. I think. What do you think about the term? I want to get away from that for a second. What do you think about the term conspiracy theory or conspiracy theorist? What do you think about that term?
Well, they like to use it because anything you say against them, and you have something else to say. I mean, it's just a freedom of speech. I don't see the conspiracy about it. I mean, we just have a freedom of speech, and if they don't like it, you turn right into conspiracy. I mean, for conspiracy that it's from bats or it's from humans, and it's not the human virus, and it's your bat virus. I mean, what? I don't believe in that. Because you can turn conspiracy into everything. So
yeah, I was always interested by the fact that like when people label you as a conspiracy theorist, it's really interesting to me because everybody says, everybody tells you that you should question everything, And then the moment you start actually questioning something, you become a conspiracy theorist. It's
Right.
strange to me.
Exactly. And a lot of people doing their own investigation, they proving something. So it's not a conspiracy. If you prove something, then it's not a conspiracy.
Well, let's look at the definition of conspiracy, right? I mean, a conspiracy is, let's look it up. So a conspiracy definition, right? So let's look it up. This is from the Oxford Dictionary. Let's look it up. Conspiracy, right? So a conspiracy is, first of all, it's a secret plan by a group of people to do something harmful or illegal. That's a conspiracy.
Right. Well,
So, I mean,
there's nothing like that. Doesn't even, because
but
you
I'm
said that
saying,
it's coming from this or that. That's not a conspiracy at all.
but it's something that you know that a group of people are involved in something more than just one person. Like, for example, let's look at the classic example of Julius Caesar, right? He was killed by the senators, and it wasn't just Brutus that killed him. Do you know what I mean? It was backed by people, and it was a whole plan to make sure that Julius Caesar wasn't going to be in power anymore. You know, so that you can't dismiss that as a conspiracy. That, I think, that was like one of the earliest conspiracies, to kill a major political figure.
Sure, but I don't think it was conspiracy. That's not how I understand it. That they went with that and that they finished him. So I thought like conspiracy is something which you make it up and you proclaim it to be true. I think that's the way I'm looking at it.
That is another definition of it, right? You make this kind of narrative in your head,
right?
And that is the way that it's supposed to be. That's how these sequence of events happen, right?
Right. But that's conspiracy. This is just a fact that they killed him. But conspiracy is something when you fabricate some kind of information and try to make it true, or persuade your group of people that you're doing this, and that's the only way you can explain this.
How I look at a conspiracy is, okay, so if Brutus killed Caesar, what is the backstory of why he killed Caesar? That's the conspiracy for me. Mm-hmm. The backstory. What was the point of, was Caesar, was he a tyrant? Was he expanding the Roman Empire in such a way that it was not beneficial for Rome? Was he treating his subjects of Rome cruelly? Was he not allowing certain people to build something in Rome? Or was he killing off gladiators? You see, that's, for me, my definition of conspiracy. Why does he need to be eliminated from the equation, let's say? And how those pieces get together up until that moment of that execution. Just like, for example, JFK, right? Like, now that's a big conspiracy theory, right? Is what things that he was doing led people or a person, because it can't be proven, to say, hey, look, this person needs to be eliminated from from whatever we are doing, right? Because, for example, if you wanted to build, a castle, right? And everybody says, like, wow, I don't want this person to build a castle. But you're the king, and you said, look, I want to build a castle. I have everything in place to build a castle, and everybody's against it. So the only way that the castle doesn't get built is if you kill the king, and then you kill the king. So that for me is a conspiracy, right? Because you got together with a bunch of people and said, look, we don't want this castle, but the castle is going to be built anyway. And the only way to get it stopped being built is if the king doesn't exist. So then you go and make a plan, and then you do whatever you need to do, and then the king doesn't exist anymore, for example.
Right.
That's to me is a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Because you're getting together with a bunch of people or yourself, and you're gonna do something fucking crazy, basically.
Right. Well, yeah, it could be. But so what we're saying about that this came from this or that, so it's not a conspiracy then. That's just an opinion.
Sure. But I think what the conspiracy is either that they here's the conspiracy, or a conspiracy, possibly, is that the facility where they were handling these dangerous viruses in Wuhan were purposely exposed to the public or not exposed publicly to the public. That's the conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
And how do we know?
Exactly. We cannot prove anything.
Yeah. I mean, you can't prove anything, man.
Mhm.
But anyway, I was watching earlier about the pyramids,
Mhm.
What do you think about those pyramids, like in Egypt, man?
No, they just checking those out again. They try to figure it out that those things have more tombs, and I think they try to like scan them. I think they did that, but they still don't know what's actually inside.
Mm. Well, I watched a video earlier about it. There was this tomb made from granite,
Mhm.
and it was as polished as best it could be, right? But it was cut precisely on 90-degree angles, cut perfectly measured for the person that was going to be buried in this sarcophagus,
Right.
And they said that if they used modern tools to measure it,
Right.
on right angles. And in the video, they said that they were the person or people who made these tombs were off only by like 0.7 tenths of an inch,
Hmm.
which basically means that they were perfect, right?
Exactly. They almost have to be machine done.
Yeah, it looks
when
like
they do
they
that.
were like those brick cutter
Right.
saws. I mean, I don't know, dude, but it's not explained properly. Egypt is
No.
not Egypt is not explained properly to me.
Exactly.
I don't understand Egypt at all.
Yeah, it's
Right?
pretty weird. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Yeah, they have no idea how this was built and why.
Look, I have a question about it because look, if these were ancient Egyptians, right? These ancient Egyptians. Now, regardless, think about it in a different way, right? Regardless if it was slave labor, paid labor, if it was paid labor, for example, if it was paid labor, meaning the pharaoh hired people to pay people to do this, how come Egyptians today cannot build pyramids.
Yeah, I think they forgot.
But how can they forget?
Well, what was it like? How much BC? So
3,000 or something?
yeah, exactly. So they only write in what hieroglyphs or something, little
Yeah.
stones and circles and squares and triangles. That's not kind of writing I can understand. You need some kind of blueprint about it. They didn't have that. So because their kind of writing, they say like how sophisticated it was, but everybody looking at it and everybody can read it. Nobody can read it. Just few guys in the world and says, well, is does it really says this or is this of this that goes into this? I mean, come on. I don't believe it one thing about it that they can read something.
Yeah, well, that they can read hieroglyphics, right?
Yeah, that's what they say. So yeah, I cannot read it. I mean, how they explain it. So it's like, and then they say like there's a page missing or several times. They don't know.
Well,
I mean, how is that connected? Or it's
how
written
would
something on the stone which you find over here and one 5 miles on the other side. Oh, this is a page of that. Yeah, bullshit.
yeah, well, and another thing is how can you look at a bunch of hieroglyphics, right? Like, how hieroglyphics look, right? It's like a bird, it's like a
Right.
statue, a guy holding a stick. It's all kind of, how can you look at those hieroglyphics and then say and translate that, even not only just in English, but how can you translate that into multiple languages in the
You,
modern era?
you can't. Look at the Bible law book. You really mean that this can do that without doing this? So if we can stretch up to today basic law book because you have more money, so you can stretch anything from hieroglyphics because nobody knows what's that mean.
Yeah, I mean, how do you even interpret that? How that should mean? I mean, first of all, we don't know. I mean, if here's my question, and this is a lot of question that I don't understand, right? If if you have to draw or write in hieroglyphics like birds and images, I mean, how do you know? How would you be able to know what that sounds like? How do you speak in that? How do you speak in hieroglyphics?
Right, exactly. Well,
How do you know how the people sound like if you because if you look at written language today, for example, you look at written language today, you might mess it up, right? Because you don't know how it sounds like, for example. But that, like, for example, there was this guy, he was so no, look, there was this in A Brave New World. Have you ever read that book, A Brave New World, by Aldous Huxley? Have you ever read that book?
kind of real kind of issues I think right now with or
Well,
audio.
yeah, with the audio. Well, no. Well, Aldous Huxley, he wrote a book called A Brave New World. And in that book, there was this guy that he read only Shakespeare, right? And they were in that book, it was kind of a modern dystopia, utopia kind of uh civilization, and the guy only read Shakespeare. And he read Shakespeare, and he didn't know what the words meant, or what the words were, or the meaning of the words, but he was able to read it. And and then and now it's even difficult for modern English speakers to know what Shakespeare was trying to say. But what he was trying to say in that book is he was able to keep kind of the old traditional language together or alive, and he was able to uh, revive it by reading these plays by William Shakespeare. But he didn't know what it sounded like. So it would be the same if you were like reading hieroglyphics and you decided, well, how does it sound like if you're just speaking in hieroglyphics? You wouldn't know. If you don't know what it sounds like, you wouldn't know the context of it, the how it is pronounced, like the accent of it, where to put stress on the word, is it a idiom, is it a metaphor? You wouldn't know any of these things without any context, especially when you're trying to translate it in a modern time. Most of the times they were kind of translating it in the 1950s, 60s, 70s up until today, and they weren't able to kind of, if you don't know what it sounds like, you aren't able to kind of realize how ancient Egyptian sounds like if you're just reading hieroglyphics, right? So if you're just reading hieroglyphics and you've never heard that language spoken, right? Like, for example, this guy, he was left alone and he was reading French, only French. And it took him like 15 years to finally figure out the book that he was reading without ever hearing French spoken. He figured out how to, he understood the book finally after 15 years.
Yeah. Well,
so he was able to understand the book that he was reading.
Maybe it's possible.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but he was able to find, I don't know how he did it, right? I don't know if it's true or not, but this is the story that he was able to figure out what that French book was telling him. He was able to read the book in French after 15 years.
Right.
Now, the problem here is that he was able to understand the book, but then he was trying to speak French and he couldn't speak a word of French. And the reason why he couldn't speak the word of French is because he never heard it spoken. He was isolated from the world.
Right.
So when he tried to speak French, he didn't speak French properly.
It's with these. I mean, we're gonna put a lot of professors who make life out of it, but I don't care. I can put them out of business. The PhD guys, because everybody explain it how they. What is it about? Everybody explain it a little different. The two guys says, "Oh yeah, Mister. Yes, this guy, he is been doing this for 600 years, and now he knows finally break the code." Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you've never heard the language spoken, if you've never known if it's a language, look, let's look at it this way. In English, we can say things. There's slang, there's idioms that don't quite make, if you translate it, doesn't make sense. We have metaphors, we have so many things that the language produces that we are not. If you go word by word trying to translate it, it won't make sense, right? So how are we so arrogant that we can go to Egypt, look at all these hieroglyphics, all these symbols, and say this is the exact meaning of what those people are trying to convey? I mean, those people wrote poetry. They had slang, right? Like, look, here's a simple example. If I say something is sick, right, and you've never heard me say that sentence, and you've never heard the context of that, you don't know the meaning of it. That could mean things like, yeah, I'm actually ill, I have an illness, or something I'm looking at is really pretty cool. right? But if you've never heard that spoken, you would never know the context or the way it's supposed to be meaning. And we're supposed to assume after so many years that we're looking at symbols that we can recreate a language with inflection, with intonation, with slang, with accent, dialect, and all of these other things, and we're supposed to know 100% of what they're trying to mean. I think that's a kind of an arrogant way to look at the language in that way. And we're supposed to know the grammar, we're supposed to know the spelling, the punctuation. We're supposed to know what these people have done, what they are doing, what they're up to, if those how those people reacted to different situations. I think that it's kind of a modern day kind of arrogance that we have, that we're able to recreate this language. So I don't know. I mean, maybe we can, but maybe it's not possible. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. But maybe it's possible. But yeah, we'll see. How it's going to go, and so anyway, I think that's going to do it for today, and we'll catch you back on the next episode. Okay, peace. What's up, man?